A stranger hands a grieving father a letter at his wife's grave. For words inside will either give him back everything he lost, or destroy what's left of his sanity. She never actually died. The woman he buried 3 years ago has been living 20 miles away, and the reason why will blow your mind. Hit that like button right now, smash subscribe, and whatever you do, don't skip any part of this story because every single second is absolute fire. Drop a comment telling us what you think is about to happen, because this one's about to blow your mind. The rain hammered Rosewood Cemetery like bullets, turning the October afternoon into a scene from hell. 6-year-old twins Lily and James Martinez pressed against their father's legs as he stood frozen before a headstone that might be hiding the biggest lie of his life. Daniel Martinez, 38, devastatingly handsome with steel-gray eyes that had closed billion-dollar deals, clutched a crumpled tissue in his fist. His $5,000 Italian suit was soaked through, but he didn't care. Nothing mattered except the words his 6-year-old daughter had just whispered, "Daddy. Mommy says she's not really sleeping under there." "What did you say?" Daniel's voice came out like broken glass. Lily looked up with those enormous dark eyes that haunted his dreams. "She talks to me at night. She says there's a big secret, and the nice lady is scared to tell you." Daniel's blood turned to ice. "What nice lady?" "The one hiding behind the angel statue. She's been following us for weeks, Daddy. She cries when she watches us." Across the cemetery, crouched behind a marble angel with spread wings, Elena Vasquez nearly dropped the envelope that had been burning holes in her hands for 3 months. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she watched Daniel's head snap in her direction. 34. Elena was beautiful in a way that snuck up on you, the kind of woman who made men do double takes and wonder why they'd never noticed her before. But right now, soaked to the skin in her nurse's scrubs, she looked like a woman carrying the weight of the world. The letter in her hands wasn't just any letter. It was a confession. A revelation. A bomb that would either save Daniel Martinez or destroy him completely. "Elena," Isabella's shaking handwriting seemed to whisper from the page, "if you're reading this, I'm gone and it's time. Daniel doesn't know the truth about what I did. About why I really died. About the choice I made that night in the hospital when the machines were failing. I need you to tell him. I need you to tell him about the switch." "She's there again," James whispered, tugging on his father's coat. "The lady who makes you look like Mommy did when she had secrets." Daniel's jaw clenched. He'd built a tech empire worth $2 billion by reading people, by seeing what others missed. But his own children were talking about mysterious women and secrets, and he felt like he was losing his mind. "Show me," he said, his voice deadly quiet. Lily pointed directly at Elena's hiding spot. "She has something for you, Daddy. Something that's gonna make you cry happy tears and sad tears at the same time." Elena's breath caught. The child was pointing right at her, and Daniel was already striding across the cemetery like a man possessed. His long legs ate up the distance between them, and there was nowhere to run. She stood up slowly, the envelope clutched against her chest like armor. Daniel stopped 3 feet away, and the intensity of his stare nearly brought her to her knees. "Who the hell are you?" His voice was silk-wrapped around steel. "And why are you stalking my family?" Elena's throat closed up. This close, she could see why Isabella had fallen so hard. Daniel Martinez wasn't just handsome, he was magnetic. Power radiated from him like heat from a furnace. His dark hair was perfectly styled despite the rain, his jaw could cut glass, and those storm-gray eyes saw everything. I'm Elena Vasquez. I was your wife's nurse." Isabella had dozens of nurses. "I was with her when she died." Elena's voice barely rose. Above a whisper. "I was holding her hand when she wrote this." She held out the envelope with trembling fingers. Daniel stared at it like it might explode. Daddy. Lily's voice carried across the cemetery. She's the one. She's the one Mommy told me about. Daniel looked back at his children, then at Elena. The rain plastered her dark hair to her skull, and her brown eyes held secrets that made his chest tight. What's in the letter? Everything, Elena whispered. Everything you need to know about why your wife really died. About what she discovered in those final weeks. About the choice she made to protect you and the children. Daniel's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Not rough, but firm enough that she couldn't escape. What choice? Isabella died from cancer. Stage 4 ovarian cancer. I was there for every treatment, every appointment. No. Elena's voice cracked. You were there for what she wanted you to see. But at night, when you went home to be with the twins, she was making plans. Plans you never knew about. The rain seemed to pause. The entire cemetery held its breath. Open it, Elena whispered, pressing the envelope into his hands. Open it and learn the truth about the woman you married. Daniel looked down at the envelope. His name was written across the front in Isabella's distinctive handwriting, but underneath it were words that made his world tilt sideways. For my husband, who loved the wrong woman for all the right reasons. What the hell does that mean? Daniel's voice was barely human. Elena backed away, tears streaming down her face. It means everything you think you know about your marriage, about Isabella's death, about why she chose me to be here today. It's all been a lie. Daddy. James was running toward them now, his little legs pumping through the wet grass. Open it. Mommy says you have to be brave. Daniel looked at his son, then at the envelope, then at the mysterious woman who'd been watching his family like a guardian angel. His hands shook as he broke the seal. The first line hit him like a physical blow. Daniel, my darling husband. By the time you read this, you'll know that the woman you buried wasn't me. The letter fluttered from his fingers. Elena caught it before it hit the ground, and when she looked up, Daniel's face had gone completely white. That's impossible, he breathed. Is it? Elena stood closer, her voice urgent now. Think, Daniel. Really think. Were there things about your wife in those final months that didn't make sense? Things she said or did that seemed different? Daniel's mind raced back. Isabella's sudden calmness about dying. The way she'd insisted on closed casket viewing. The strange requests she'd made about her burial. The night she'd told him she had a twin sister who'd died at birth. A story that had never come up in 6 years of marriage. Oh my God, he whispered. Elena nodded, rain and tears mixing on her cheeks. Your wife didn't die 3 years ago, Daniel. She's been living 20 miles away, recovering from the surgery that saved her life. She sent me to find you because it's time for the truth. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating both their faces in stark black and white. Where is she? Daniel's voice was raw with hope and fury and terror all at once. Elena smiled for the first time since he'd approached. She's waiting for you. She's been waiting for 3 years. But first... She gestured to the twins, who were watching this exchange with the wide-eyed fascination of children who'd always known their family's story wasn't finished. First, you need to decide if you can forgive her for the most beautiful lie ever told. What would you do if you discovered the love of your life had faked their death? Would you forgive them or walk away forever? Comment now. This is about to get insane. Daniel's world collapsed and reconstructed itself in the span of a heartbeat. The cemetery spun around him like a carousel as he gripped the letter with white knuckles, Isabella's impossible words burning into his retinas. She's alive. His voice cracked like a teenager's. My wife is alive. Elena stepped closer, her brown eyes blazing with 3 years of carried secrets. Daniel, you need to sit down. What I'm about to tell you will change everything you think you know about love, sacrifice, and the lengths someone will go to protect their family. Tell me. The roar erupted from somewhere primal in his chest, echoing off marble headstones and making nearby ravens scatter. Tell me right now, or I swear to God, Daddy. Lily's small voice cut through his rage. She was standing perfectly still, rain dripping from her dark curls, watching him with those ancient eyes. You're scaring Elena. Mommy says you need to listen with your heart, not your mad. Daniel looked at his daughter, really looked, and saw something that made his breath catch. She wasn't surprised. Neither was James. The twins were watching this unfold like they'd been waiting for it their entire lives. How long have you known? He whispered. James stepped forward, his little jaw set with determination. Since forever, Daddy. Mommy visits us. She told us about the sleeping medicine that made everyone think she was dead. She told us about Elena taking care of her. She told us you'd be really, really mad at first. Elena's knees nearly gave out. They've been seeing her? In dreams. Not dreams, Lily said matter-of-factly. Real visits. She comes to our room when you're working late. She reads us stories and tells us about the day she'll come home. Daniel staggered backward, his corporate mind trying to process impossible information. This is insane. People don't fake their own deaths. Isabella had cancer. I saw the scans, the treatments. She did have cancer, Elena interrupted, her voice steady now. Stage 4, just like you remember. But Daniel. She moved closer, close enough that he could smell the rain in her hair and see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. What you don't know is that Isabella discovered something else during those final weeks. Something that changed everything. The rain intensified, turning the cemetery into a cathedral of sound. Elena pulled out her phone, fingers trembling as she scrolled through messages. She found what she was looking for and held the screen toward Daniel. It was a video. Isabella's face filled the frame, pale, thin from chemo, but undeniably alive. The timestamp showed it was recorded just 6 months ago. Play it, Elena whispered. Daniel's finger hovered over the screen. This was the moment of no return. Once he heard Isabella's voice, once he saw proof she was alive, his carefully rebuilt life would crumble again. Daddy, James tugged on his coat. She's waiting. Daniel pressed play. Isabella's voice flowed out like honey in heartbreak. My darling Daniel, if you're watching this, Elena found the courage I knew she had. I need you to listen to everything before you hate me. Before you decide I'm a monster for what I did to you and our babies. Daniel's hands shook so violently he could barely hold the phone. The cancer was real. The dying was real. But 3 days before they thought I died, something miraculous happened. Dr. Richardson found a new treatment. Experimental. Dangerous. But it could save me. Elena watched Daniel's face transform from confusion to hope to crushing realization. The catch was that I had to disappear completely for 6 months. No contact with anyone. The treatment required total isolation. My immune system would be so compromised that even seeing you or the twins could kill me. But Daniel. Isabella's voice broke. The real reason I had to fake my death wasn't medical. It was because of what I discovered about your business partner, Richard Coleman. Daniel's blood turned to ice. Richard Coleman. His best friend since college. His business partner. The man who'd held him when he cried at Isabella's funeral. Richard has been embezzling from your company for years. Millions, Daniel. And when I found out, when I confronted him, he threatened our children. He said if I ever told you, He'd make sure something happened to Lily and James. The phone clattered to the wet ground. Daniel stood frozen, rain streaming down his face like tears he couldn't shed. "That's why she had to die," Elena said softly. "To protect you all. Richard thinks she took his secret to the grave. He's been free to steal from you for 3 years while Isabella hid in a cabin in Vermont, recovering and gathering evidence." Evidence. Daniel's voice was barely human. Elena nodded. Enough to put him in prison for life. Enough to get back every penny plus damages. But she needed time to get stronger, to build an airtight case. And she needed. Elena's cheeks flushed. She needed someone she trusted to watch over you and the children. You. The pieces clicked together. "You've been watching us for 3 years. Every day," Elena admitted. "At the cemetery, at the children's school, at your office building. Isabella asked me to be her eyes and ears. To make sure you were safe. To make sure Richard wasn't getting suspicious." Daniel's mind reeled. Every coincidence over the past 3 years. The new nurse who'd treated James when he broke his arm, the woman who'd helped when his car broke down last winter, the stranger who'd returned Lily's lost backpack. Had it all been Elena? "The day James fell off his bike," he said slowly. "The woman who called the ambulance. Me. The coffee shop where I met that woman who knew so much about grief counseling. Me. Jesus Christ." Daniel ran his hands through his soaked hair. "You've been living my life for 3 years, and I never even saw you." Elena's smile was sad and beautiful. "Isabella said you were brilliant at everything except seeing what was right in front of you. Where is she?" The question came out like a prayer. "Where is my wife?" Elena looked at the twins, who nodded solemnly. Some silent communication passed between them. 20 miles from here. She's been waiting for this day, but she's terrified, Daniel. She knows what she did was unforgivable. She knows she stole 3 years from your family. She's prepared for you to hate her. Hate her. Daniel's laugh was wild, desperate. "I've been dying for 3 years. Drowning. I've been half a man, half a father, because the best part of me was buried in this cemetery. And you're telling me she's alive? That she's been alive this whole time." "She saved your life," Elena said fiercely. "She saved your children's lives. Richard Coleman is going down tomorrow morning. The FBI has everything they need, thanks to Isabella's sacrifice." Daniel looked at his children, really looked at them. They weren't broken like he was. They weren't carrying the weight of unbearable loss. Because they'd known the truth all along. "We're ready to go home now, Daddy," Lily said, taking his hand. "All of us together. Can you forgive her?" Elena asked. "Can you forgive me?" Daniel stared at this woman who'd been his guardian angel for 3 years. This beautiful, selfless woman who'd given up her own life to protect his family. Who'd carried Isabella's secret and watched him struggle and never once broken her promise. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I know I have to see her. I have to hear her voice saying my name one more time." Elena smiled through her tears. "She never stopped saying your name, Daniel. Every day for 3 years, she's been whispering your name and counting the hours until she could come home. Would you be able to forgive someone for faking their death to save your life? This is the most insane love story ever. Comment if you think Daniel should forgive Isabella, or if some betrayals are too big for love." The ride to Isabella's hiding place was the longest 20 miles of Daniel's life. His hands gripped the steering wheel of his Mercedes like it was the only thing keeping him tethered to reality, while Elena sat in the passenger seat giving directions to a woman who was supposed to be dead in the back seat. The twins chattered excitedly, as if they were heading to Disney World instead of the most emotionally explosive reunion in human history. She's gonna cry so much when she sees you, Daddy, Lily announced, swinging her legs. Happy tears, but also scared tears because she thinks you might not love her anymore. That's silly, James added with 6-year-old wisdom. Daddy loves Mommy more than chocolate ice cream. Even more than his phone. Daniel caught Elena's eye in the rearview mirror. How is this so easy for them? Elena's smile was gentle but heartbreaking. Because children understand love in ways adults forget. They don't complicate it with pride or logic. Isabella never left them. She just became invisible for a while. Turn left at the next mailbox, Elena directed. The blue one with the daisies painted on it. They pulled down a gravel driveway lined with towering pine trees. At the end sat a small log cabin that looked like something from a fairy tale. Window boxes overflowing with autumn flowers, smoke curling from the chimney, golden light spilling from every window. Daniel's heart stopped. Through the front window, he could see a silhouette moving around inside. A woman's silhouette. Graceful, familiar, impossible. She's been cooking all day, Elena said softly. Your favorite meal. Lasagna with that ridiculous amount of cheese you love, garlic bread, and the chocolate cake she made for your first anniversary. She remembers our anniversary meal. Daniel's voice cracked. Daniel, Elena turned to face him fully, and he was struck again by how beautiful she was, not just her features, but the kindness that radiated from her like warmth. She remembers everything. Every conversation, every fight, every moment of happiness you two shared. She spent 3 years reliving your entire marriage, wondering if she made the right choice. The front door of the cabin opened, and Daniel's world tilted off its axis. Isabella stepped onto the porch. She was different, thinner than before, with shorter hair that curled around her face in soft waves. But she was alive. Breathing. Real. She wore a simple blue dress he'd bought her for their 3rd anniversary, and her hands were pressed to her mouth in shock. Oh my God, Daniel breathed. Oh my God, it's really her. Mommy. The twins exploded from the car like rockets, racing across the gravel driveway and launching themselves into Isabella's arms. She caught them, spinning them around as all 3 of them sobbed and laughed simultaneously. Daniel sat frozen behind the wheel, watching his family reunite while his heart performed acrobatics in his chest. Go to her, Elena whispered. I can't. His voice was barely audible. What if this is a dream? What if I wake up and she's gone again? Elena reached over and touched his hand. Her fingers were warm, real, anchoring. Daniel, look at me. He turned, and she was so close he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, could smell the faint scent of vanilla in her hair. I have watched you grieve for 3 years, she said intensely. I have seen you cry in your car outside the twins' school. I've watched you stare at her picture for hours. I've seen you try to date other women and fail because no one could measure up to a ghost. Don't you dare let fear rob you of this moment. On the porch, Isabella was looking toward the car, her face radiant with hope and terror. She said something to the children, and they both turned and waved frantically at their father. She's scared too, Elena continued. She thinks you'll take one look at her and drive away. She thinks you'll never forgive her for choosing to live. Choosing to live, Daniel repeated slowly. That's what she did, isn't it? She chose life over death, hope over surrender. And she chose you, Elena said. Every single day for 3 years, she chose you. She chose your future together over the easy path of staying hidden forever. Daniel's door opened before he consciously decided to move. His feet carried him across the gravel, each step feeling like walking through honey. Isabella met him halfway, the children clinging to her dress like beautiful anchors. They stopped 3 feet apart, close enough to touch, far enough to run. "Hi," Isabella whispered, and her voice was exactly as he remembered. "Silk and sunshine and home. You're alive." It wasn't a question anymore. It was a miracle. "I'm alive." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I'm so incredibly sorry for what I put you through." "Why?" The word came out rough, desperate. "Why didn't you trust me? We could have faced Richard together. We could have." "He had photos, Daniel." Isabella's voice broke. Photos of the twins at school, at the park, getting off the school bus. He said if I breathed a word about his embezzlement, he'd make sure they had an accident. He said you'd never be able to protect them because you'd never see him coming. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. "I would have killed him." "I know. And then our children would have lost both parents. Me to cancer, you to prison. So I chose a different way. I chose to disappear until I could gather enough evidence to bury him forever." 3 years, Isabella. 3 years of hell. "I know." She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of green in her hazel eyes. "I died a little every day, knowing what I was putting you through. But Daniel." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I was dying anyway. The cancer was winning. This gave me a reason to fight, a reason to get better. Saving you and the children gave me the strength to survive." Daniel looked down at his twins, who were watching this conversation with the intensity of tiny therapists. "Did you know?" he asked them. "Did you really know she was alive?" Lily nodded solemnly. "She came to us in dreams at first. Then, when she got better, she started visiting for real. But only when you were at work. She made us promise not to tell because it wasn't safe yet. You kept this secret for 3 years." Daniel's voice was awed. James puffed out his chest. "We're good at secrets. Mommy taught us that sometimes love means keeping quiet until it's time to be loud." Isabella laughed through her tears. "They've been my lifeline, Daniel. Every stolen moment with them kept me sane." "And Elena?" Daniel turned to look at the woman still standing by the car, giving them space for their reunion. "How does she fit into this?" Isabella followed his gaze, and her expression softened with profound gratitude. "Elena saved my life in more ways than one. She was my nurse during treatment, but she became so much more. When I told her my plan, she could have refused. She could have called you, could have exposed everything. Instead, she gave up her own life to help me save yours." Daniel looked at Elena, really looked at her. This beautiful, selfless woman who'd spent 3 years as his invisible guardian angel. Who'd watched him struggle and never once broken her promise. Who'd carried the weight of impossible secrets so his family could survive. "She's in love with you, you know," Isabella said softly. Daniel's heart stopped. "What?" "Elena. She's been in love with you since the day she met you at the hospital. I saw it in her eyes when she watched you hold my hand during chemo. I saw how she looked at you when you fell asleep in the chair beside my bed." "Isabella, it's okay, Daniel. More than okay. Do you know what I realized during these 3 years apart? Love isn't finite. It doesn't run out when you share it. It multiplies." She took his hands, and they were warm and real and alive. "I want you to be happy," she continued. "Even if that happiness includes someone else. Even if it includes Elena." Daniel looked at his wife, his impossible, wonderful, infuriating wife, and felt something shift in his chest. The anger was still there, the hurt, the sense of betrayal. But underneath it all was a love so deep it had survived death itself. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I don't know how to forgive you and love you and be furious with you all at the same time." Isabella smiled, the smile that had made him propose on their second date. One day at a time. One day at a time, he agreed. And then finally, inevitably, she was in his arms. The cabin's living room felt impossibly small with 3 adults and 2 children navigating the minefield of resurrected love. Isabella bustled around the kitchen like a woman possessed, desperate to fill the emotional silence with the familiar rhythm of feeding her family. The smell of lasagna filled the air, mixing comfort with the sharp edge of 3 years' worth of unspoken words. Daniel sat on the worn leather couch, twins curled against his sides like bookends, watching his wife move through their temporary home. Every gesture was familiar yet foreign, the way she tucked her shorter hair behind her ear, the careful way she favored her left side where the surgery scars still pulled. Elena stood by the window, pretending to admire the view while really studying Daniel's face in the glass reflection. She'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, but nothing had prepared her for the raw intensity of watching a love story resurrect itself right in front of her. "Elena, please sit down," Isabella called from the kitchen. "You're part of this family now, whether you admit it or not." "I should go," Elena said quickly. "You 3 need time alone, and oh." The word exploded from both twins simultaneously, making all 3 adults jump. Lily scrambled off the couch and threw her arms around Elena's waist. "You can't leave. We just got everyone back together." James joined his sister, creating a human chain around Elena's legs. "Daddy needs you, and Mommy needs you, and we need you." "Kids," Daniel started. "They're right." Isabella appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel that read "World's Best Mom," a Mother's Day gift from 3 years ago that somehow survived her fake death. "Elena, I owe you everything. But more than that, this family owes you everything. You don't get to just disappear now that the hard part is over." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Isabella, I never meant for things to get so complicated. I was just supposed to watch over them, make sure they were safe, and somewhere along the way, you fell in love." Isabella's voice was gentle, understanding. "With all of us." The admission hung in the air like a held breath. Elena's cheeks flamed red, but she didn't deny it. "Is that true?" Daniel's voice was soft, careful. "Elena." She couldn't look at him. Couldn't bear to see pity or confusion or worse, obligation, in those storm-gray eyes. "It doesn't matter what I feel. You have your wife back. Your family is whole again. I'm just the nurse who helped along the way." "Bullshit." Isabella's curse word made the twins giggle and gasp in scandalized delight. "Elena Marie Vasquez, you look at me right now." Elena's head snapped up, surprised by Isabella's commanding tone. "You think I don't know what you sacrificed?" Isabella continued, moving closer. "You think I don't know you turned down job offers in other cities because you couldn't bear to leave them? That you spent your savings hiring private investigators to track Richard's activities? That you haven't been on a single date in 3 years because your heart was already taken?" "How do you? Because I've been watching you watch them," Isabella said simply. "And I've never seen anyone love my family the way you do. Not from the outside looking in, but from the inside looking out. Like they're already yours." Daniel studied Elena's face, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. The woman who'd appeared in his life's margins for 3 years, never intrusive, always helpful, perpetually present when he needed her most. "The night James had pneumonia," he said slowly, "when I was panicking in the ER waiting room. There was a nurse who brought me coffee and stayed with me until morning." Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. "And last Christmas, when Lily asked Santa for a mommy and I broke down crying in the mall parking lot. A woman knocked on my window and handed me tissues without saying a word." Another nod. "Jesus." Daniel ran his hands through his hair. You've been taking care of us this whole time. Not just watching, actively loving us. I couldn't help it, Elena whispered. They're incredible children, Daniel. And you're the kind of father every child deserves. The kind of man who loves so deeply that losing that love nearly destroyed you. How could I not fall in love with that? Isabella wiped tears from her eyes, then walked over and took Elena's hands. I have a confession to make. Another one. Daniel's laugh was shaky. The last one, I promise. Isabella squeezed Elena's fingers. When I first asked you to watch over them, it wasn't just because I trusted you. It was because I saw how Daniel looked at you during those late-night chemo sessions. Even dying, even completely devoted to me, there was something about you that made him lighter. Isabella, Daniel started. Let me finish. She turned to her husband, still holding Elena's hands. I saw it, and instead of being jealous, I felt relieved. Because I knew if something happened to me, there was someone in this world capable of loving you and the children the way you deserved. Elena tried to pull away, but Isabella held firm. I'm not saying this to absolve my guilt or to make some grand romantic gesture, Isabella continued. I'm saying it because love this pure, this selfless, this real, it doesn't come along often. And I'll be damned if I let fear or convention or my own resurrection destroy it. What are you saying? Daniel's voice was barely audible. Isabella looked at her husband, then at Elena, then at their children who were watching this adult conversation with the fascination of tiny philosophers. I'm saying that Elena isn't the third wheel in our story. She's not the other woman, or the consolation prize, or the complication. Isabella's voice grew stronger, more certain. She's the missing piece we didn't know we needed. Thunder rumbled outside, and as if summoned by the emotional intensity, rain began pelting the cabin windows. The storm that had started at the cemetery was following them, trapping them all together in this small space where hearts were being rearranged like furniture. The roads, Elena said suddenly, pulling out her phone. Oh no. The main road back to town. It's flooded. The GPS says it won't be passable until morning. Daniel checked his own phone, then looked out the window at the torrential downpour. We're stuck here. All of us, Isabella said, and there was something that sounded suspiciously like satisfaction in her voice. Together. Lily clapped her hands in delight. It's like a sleepover. Can we make pillow forts? And tell stories. James added. The grown-up kind with kissing. Kids. Daniel's face turned red. What? You kiss Mommy, and Elena kisses you on the cheek when she thinks no one's looking, and Mommy kisses Elena's forehead when she cries. When did you see all that? Elena gasped. The twins exchanged one of their mysterious looks. We see everything, they said in unison, then dissolved into giggles. Isabella laughed. The first real, unguarded laugh Daniel had heard from her in 3 years. Well, I guess that settles it. We're all stuck here together until morning. No running away, no avoiding difficult conversations, no pretending this isn't the most beautifully complicated situation any of us have ever been in. She moved to the fireplace and added another log, the flames casting dancing shadows on the cabin walls. So we have about 12 hours to figure out how 3 adults who love each other are going to make this work. Do you really think we can? Elena's voice was small, hopeful. Daniel looked at his wife, alive, determined, impossibly generous. He looked at Elena, beautiful, selfless, already woven into the fabric of his family. He looked at his children, happy, whole, completely accepting of love in all its forms. I don't know, he admitted, but I know I don't want to lose any of you ever again. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the little cabin, Three hearts began the delicate work of expanding to make room for a love story that defied every rule they'd ever learned. Who do you think Daniel should choose, his resurrected wife or his guardian angel Elena? Or is Isabella right that love can multiply instead of divide? Drop your prediction below. The lasagna sat half-eaten on mismatched cabin plates as rain hammered the windows like an impatient lover demanding entry. The twins had finally fallen asleep on the living room rug, curled together like puppies in a nest of blankets, their faces peaceful in the firelight, which left three adults sitting around the kitchen table, wine glasses barely touched, staring at each other across a chasm of unspoken truths. "I need to know everything," Daniel said finally, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Not just the pretty version you've been telling me. The real story. All of it." Isabella's hands trembled as she reached for her wine. "Daniel, no." His voice was steel-wrapped in silk. "I've spent 3 years grieving a lie. I've made peace with your death, remarried you in my heart 1,000 times, and learned to live with a hole in my chest. Now you're sitting here alive and beautiful and asking me to just, what? Pretend the last 3 years didn't happen." Elena started to rise. "I should check on the children. Sit down." Daniel's command stopped her mid-motion. "You're part of this now, whether you want to be or not. I want to know how a pediatric nurse became willing to fake someone's death and spend 3 years lying to a grieving family." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Elena sank back into her chair, her face pale. "Because," Isabella said quietly, "she was grieving too." Daniel's eyes snapped to Elena. "What does that mean?" Elena's voice came out barely above a whisper. "I had a daughter." The words hit the room like a physical blow. Daniel's anger evaporated instantly, replaced by something deeper and more complex. "Had?" he asked gently. Elena's hands shook as she pushed her hair back from her face. "Sophia. She was 4. Leukemia." She looked up, and her eyes were drowning in unshed tears. Isabella was her oncology nurse before she got pregnant with the twins. Isabella reached across the table and covered Elena's hand with hers. "Tell him about the last day. Isabella, he needs to understand why you said yes to something so insane. Why you were willing to give up your entire life for people you barely knew." Elena took a shuddering breath. "Sophia died on a Tuesday, March 15th, 3.5 years ago." Isabella held my hand while I said goodbye. "She stayed with me for 12 hours after, just sitting in that horrible hospital chair, not saying anything, just being there." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He remembered that day. Isabella had come home late, emotionally wrung out, and spent the entire night holding him and crying about a little girl who'd lost her fight. "The funeral was the following Friday," Elena continued, her voice growing stronger. "I was completely alone. My parents had died when I was 22. I'm an only child, and Sophia's father, he left when she was diagnosed. Said he couldn't handle watching her die." "But Isabella came," Daniel said, beginning to understand. Elena nodded. "She came to the funeral. She brought flowers, daisies, because I'd mentioned once that Sophia loved daisies. She sat in the back, and when it was over, she walked me to my car and said, 'You're not alone in this world, Elena. I see you and you matter.'" Isabella's voice was thick with emotion. She was so lost, Daniel. So completely, utterly lost. Like a ghost walking around in a living person's body. "So when I got my cancer diagnosis 6 months later," Isabella continued, "and I realized what Richard was threatening, Elena was the first person I thought of. Not because I wanted to use her grief, but because I recognized it. I knew she'd understand what it meant to love someone so much you'd do anything to protect them." Daniel looked at Elena with new eyes. "You said yes because you knew what it felt like to lose a child. I said yes because I couldn't bear to watch it happen to someone else, Elena corrected. Especially not to those beautiful babies who looked at their mother like she hung the moon. But there's more, Isabella said softly. Tell him about the first time you saw him with the twins. Elena's cheeks flushed. Isabella, tell him. Elena stared into her wine glass as if it held all the answers to life's cruelest questions. It was during one of Isabella's treatments. You brought the twins to the hospital because the babysitter canceled. You were juggling work calls and coloring books and trying to keep them quiet in the waiting room. Daniel remembered that day. One of the worst of his life, a crucial board meeting he'd had to cancel, 2 4-year-olds melting down from stress and boredom, and the crushing weight of watching his wife disappear a little more each day. Lily started crying because she wanted her mommy, Elena continued. And you got down on the floor in your expensive suit and pulled her into your lap. You didn't care about the stairs or the wrinkled fabric or the crayon marks she got on your shirt. You just held her and sang that silly song about the itsy bitsy spider until she laughed. Daniel's throat tightened. He remembered that moment, feeling helpless and desperate and completely out of his depth. I watched you and I thought, that's what love looks like. Not the romantic comedy version, not the fairy tale version, but the real version. The version that shows up in hospital waiting rooms and puts children's needs before everything else. And you fell in love with him that day, Isabella said gently. Elena nodded, tears spilling over. Not the way people fall in love in movies. It was quieter than that. More like recognition. Like seeing something I'd been searching for my whole life without knowing I was looking. Daniel's heart was doing impossible things in his chest. Elena, but I never would have acted on it, she rushed to clarify. Never. You were married, you were happy, you were completely devoted to Isabella. I was just grateful to witness love like that. It gave me hope that maybe someday I could feel something other than grief. Isabella leaned forward, her voice intense. Don't you see, Daniel? When I asked Elena to watch over you and the children, I wasn't just asking her to be a guardian angel. I was giving her a family to love and a reason to heal. And I was giving you and the twins someone who would love you the way you deserve to be loved. Even if it meant sharing us. Daniel asked quietly. Isabella's smile was radiant and heartbreaking. Especially if it meant sharing you. Daniel, I've been dead for 3 years. Not physically, but emotionally. I've been existing in a bubble, waiting for someday, living on borrowed time and stolen moments. But Elena has been living your life. She's been the mother who worried when the twins had nightmares. She's been the partner who celebrated your business victories and held you when you cried. Daniel looked at Elena, seeing her completely for the first time. Is that true? Elena's voice was barely audible. I never meant for it to happen. I was just supposed to watch from a distance. But you're all so easy to love. And you looked so lost, Daniel. Like you were drowning and trying to pretend you could swim. I was drowning, he admitted. Every single day. I know. I could see it in the way you held your shoulders, the way you smiled at the twins when you thought no one was looking. Like you were trying to be strong enough for everyone while falling apart inside. Isabella reached across the table and took both their hands. This is why I need you to understand something crucial. What I'm about to tell you isn't a dying woman's romantic fantasy. It's not guilt or gratitude or some twisted form of polyamory. She looked at Daniel, then at Elena, her eyes blazing with certainty. You two have been married in everything but name for 3 years. You've been co-parenting my children, sharing the burden of my loss, taking care of each other without even realizing it. You've built a life together while I've been hiding in this cabin, and it's beautiful. It's real. And it's exactly what I prayed would happen. The cabin fell silent except for the rain and the crackling fire and the soft breathing of sleeping children. So now, Isabella continued, we have to decide what happens next. Do we try to go back to the way things were? Do we pretend the last 3 years didn't reshape all of us? Or do we have the courage to build something entirely new? Daniel looked at his wife, brave, generous, impossible Isabella. Then he looked at Elena, quiet, selfless, beautiful Elena who'd loved his family from the shadows. I don't know how to love two people, he said honestly. Isabella smiled. Maybe it's time to learn. The storm outside began to quiet, but inside the cabin, something even more powerful was brewing. After Elena's devastating revelation about her daughter, the 3 adults sat in silence, each processing the weight of shared grief and unexpected love. Isabella stood first, moving to the fireplace where family photos lined the mantel, pictures Elena had never seen before. Photos of Isabella during coincidental encounters with them. And in the center, a photo that made Elena's breath catch. T was her, sitting on a park bench with Lily and James after James had fallen off the monkey bars last spring. Elena was checking his scraped knee while Lily braided dandelions into a crown. The photo captured something Elena hadn't realized existed. She looked like a mother. Like she belonged. You took that? Elena asked, her voice wondering. Isabella nodded. I've been documenting your life with them. All of it. Every soccer game you attended from across the field. Every school play you watched from the back row. Every time you followed their school bus to make sure they got home safely. Daniel moved to stand beside them, studying the photo. In it, Elena's face was soft with the kind of love that couldn't be faked. The twins were looking at her with complete trust, complete acceptance. They love you, he said quietly. Really love you. Not just because you've been kind to them, but the way children love a parent. They've been asking about you, Isabella admitted to Elena. During our secret visits, they tell me about the nice lady, who always seemed to appear when they needed help. They started calling you their invisible mommy. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. They what? Last month, Lily asked me if invisible mommies could become real mommies if everyone wished hard enough, Isabella continued, her voice gentle. And James said he thought God sent you to take care of them while I was sleeping. Daniel felt something crack open in his chest. Elena, when James had that panic attack at school after the Father's Day presentation, you called me, Elena finished. Without even thinking about it. You had my number memorized. I did. Daniel's realization was dawning slowly. And when Lily got food poisoning from that birthday party, you texted me at midnight because you knew I'd answer. Because you always answer, Daniel said, wonder creeping into his voice. For 3 years, whenever something went wrong with my children, you were the first person I reached for. Isabella smiled through her tears. Do you see it now? Do you see what's been right in front of you? Elena moved closer to the mantel, studying more photos. There was one of Daniel at his office Christmas party last year, looking handsome but hollow in his black tuxedo. In the background, barely visible, was Elena in her simple blue dress. She'd been working the party as part of the catering staff's medical team. You were there, Daniel breathed. You were at my Christmas party. You looked so sad, Elena whispered. Standing by yourself while everyone else danced. I wanted to ask you to dance, but you thought it would be inappropriate, Daniel finished. God, Elena, I spent that entire night wishing I had someone to dance with. Someone who knew why I couldn't enjoy parties anymore. Isabella pulled out another photo, this one of Elena sitting in her car outside Daniel's office building, tears streaming down her face while she watched him through the windows on the anniversary of Isabella's death. You cried for him, Isabella said softly. On the day you were supposed to be grieving me, you were crying for his pain. I couldn't bear it, Elena admitted. Watching him try to work like it was just another day when I could see how much he was hurting. I wanted to go up there and hold him, tell him he didn't have to be strong every second of every day. Daniel's control finally cracked. He pulled Elena into his arms, and she melted against him like she'd been waiting 3 years for permission to fall apart. You could have, he murmured into her hair. You could have come to me any time. I would have what? Elena pulled back to look at him. What would you have done? Daniel cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. I would have recognized you. The woman who's been saving my family one small kindness at a time. I would have seen what Isabella saw, that you're not the stranger who's been watching us. You're the guardian angel who's been loving us. From the living room came a sleepy voice. Are you guys done talking about feelings? Because we're hungry. All 3 adults turned to see James sitting up in his blanket nest, hair sticking up at impossible angles, looking like a miniature version of his father. How long have you been awake? Isabella asked, moving toward her son. Since Elena started crying about Sophia, James said matter-of-factly. That's your little girl who became an angel, right? Elena's breath caught. How do you? She visits us sometimes, Lily said, sitting up and rubbing her eyes. She's friends with our mommy in the angel place. She told us you get really sad on her birthday. Elena sank to her knees beside the children, her heart breaking and healing simultaneously. You've seen Sophia? Lily nodded solemnly. She's really pretty, and she says you're the best mommy ever, even though she had to go away. She says she's not sad anymore because she knows you found us to love. Elena covered her face with her hands, overwhelmed by the impossible beauty of children who saw angels as easily as breathing. Daniel knelt beside her, pulling her close while Isabella gathered the twins. She also said, James continued with 6-year-old logic, that love isn't like toys where you can only have one favorite. Love is like hugs. The more you give, the more you have. Smart little girl, Isabella said, her voice thick with emotion. So Lily announced, standing up with the authority of someone who'd figured out all of life's complexities. Elena is our invisible mommy who's going to become our real second mommy, and Daddy loves both our mommies, and we're going to be the first family with 2 mommies and 1 daddy, and that's perfectly okay because love is magic. The adults stared at her in amazement. Did you just solve our entire situation? Daniel asked his daughter. Lily shrugged. It wasn't that hard. You grown-ups make everything complicated. Love is easy if you just let it happen. Isabella laughed, a sound like wind chimes and church bells and every beautiful thing Daniel had missed for 3 years. Out of the mouths of babes. Elena stood, looking at this family that had somehow become hers without her permission or understanding. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. I don't know how to be part of something so beautiful and complicated and perfect. Daniel took her hand, intertwining their fingers. Nobody knows how to do this, he said. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we figure it out together. Isabella moved to Elena's other side, taking her free hand. The 3 of us, figuring out how to build something that's never existed before. A family with too much love instead of too little, Elena whispered. Exactly, Isabella said. A family where love multiplies instead of divides. The twins cheered and launched themselves at all 3 adults, creating a group hug that felt like coming home and starting fresh and every good thing that had ever happened all at once. Outside, the storm finally broke, and the first rays of dawn began to paint the cabin walls gold. Look, James pointed to the window. The sun came back. It always does, Elena said, her voice full of wonder. Even after the longest, darkest night, the sun always comes back. Daniel looked at his wife, alive and radiant. He looked at Elena, beautiful and brave and finally home. He looked at his children, wise beyond their years and perfect in their acceptance. "So what happens now?" he asked. Isabella smiled. "Now we go home. All of us. Together." 3 weeks later, the perfect bubble of their unconventional family arrangement met the sharp edges of the real world with devastating force. Daniel stood in his corner office, 30 floors above Seattle, staring at the legal documents scattered across his mahogany desk like landmines. His hand shook as he reread the custody petition filed by Isabella's parents, the Rodriguezes, words like unfit father, inappropriate living arrangement, and corrupting influence jumping off the page like slaps to the face. The door burst open without a knock, and his business partner, Richard's voice dripped false sympathy. He was a handsome man in his early 40s, the kind who'd aged well and used his charm like a weapon. "I heard about the custody situation. Terrible thing when family turns against family." Daniel's jaw clenched. For 3 weeks, he'd been building his case against Richard, gathering the evidence Isabella had collected during her death. Today was supposed to be the day Richard was arrested. Instead, Daniel was fighting for his children. "Get out of my office, Richard. Now. Is that any way to treat the man who's been keeping your company afloat while you play house with your dead wife and her little nursemaid?" Richard settled into the leather chair across from Daniel's desk like he owned it. "Speaking of which, I understand congratulations are in order. Isabella rising from the dead is quite the miracle. Though I have to say, the whole menage a trois situation is a bit unconventional for a man in your position. What do you want?" Richard's smile turned razor-sharp. "I want you to drop whatever little investigation you think you're conducting into my business practices. I want you to sign over your controlling interest in Martinez Tectomy. And I want you to send your resurrected wife and her girlfriend far, far away from those beautiful children. Go to hell." "Oh, Daniel." Richard leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You still don't understand, do you? I've been 3 steps ahead of you for years. Who do you think tipped off Isabella's parents about your unusual living situation? Who do you think provided them with photos of Elena spending nights at your house? Of all 3 of you playing happy family in the park?" Daniel's blood turned to ice. "You bastard. I'm a businessman who protects his investments. And Danny, you've been my most profitable investment for years." Richard stood, straightening his tie. "You have until 5 o'clock to make your choice. Sign the company over to me, or watch those children disappear into the loving arms of their maternal grandparents while you and your 2 wives become a cautionary tale about moral degeneracy." The door slammed behind him, leaving Daniel alone with the worst decision of his life. Meanwhile, across town in the modest 2-bedroom apartment Elena had maintained despite spending most nights at Daniel's house, she sat at her kitchen table staring at the resignation letter she typed and retyped a dozen times. Isabella paced behind her, fury radiating from every movement. At 32, Isabella had always been passionate, but 3 years of forced separation from her family had turned that passion into something fierce and protective. "You can't quit," Isabella said for the 10th time. "You can't let them win. Look at this." Elena held up her tablet, showing the local news website. The headline made her stomach turn: "Tech Millionaire's Dead Wife Returns. Shocking Love Triangle Threatens Children's Welfare." The article was brutal, painting Daniel as a man so desperate for female companionship that he'd moved his wife's former nurse into his home before Isabella's body was even cold. It described Elena as a predatory woman who'd manipulated a grieving family, and Isabella as an unstable woman whose fake death proved her unfitness as a mother. "My supervisor called this morning," Elena continued, her voice hollow. "The hospital is conducting an ethics review. They're questioning whether I violated professional boundaries, whether I'm mentally stable, whether I can be trusted with vulnerable patients. Isabella knelt beside Elena's chair, taking her hands. Elena, listen to me. This is exactly what Richard Coleman wants. He wants us fractured, fighting, scattered. He wants you to disappear so Daniel doesn't have anyone to lean on when this gets worse. Maybe he's right. Elena's voice cracked. Maybe I should disappear. Maybe Daniel and the twins would be better off if I just— Don't you dare finish that sentence. Isabella's grip tightened. Elena, you are not the problem here. You are the solution we didn't know we needed. You are the glue that held this message from an unknown number, but she recognized the writing style immediately. Lily had learned to text from her tech genius father. Elena, where are you? Daddy is crying and Grandma and Grandpa Rodriguez are here and they keep saying mean things about you and Mommy. James hid in the closet and won't come out. We need you. Elena's heart shattered. Oh God. They're at the house. Isabella was already grabbing car keys. We're going. Now. Isabella, if we show up together, it'll just make things worse. I don't care. Isabella's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. Those are my children, and they're scared. We're going. The scene at Daniel's house was a war zone disguised as a family meeting. Isabella's parents, Carlos and Maria Rodriguez, sat in the living room like judges presiding over a trial. Carlos was a distinguished man in his 60s, a retired bank president with silver hair and the kind of moral certainty that could cut glass. Maria was elegant and cold, the type of woman who'd never forgiven the world for taking her only daughter. Daniel sat across from them, his corporate armor stripped away, looking like a man being slowly torn apart. This is not about you, Daniel, Maria was saying, her voice like ice over steel. This is about what's best for Lily and James. Children need stability, moral guidance, proper role models. They have proper role models, Daniel said through gritted teeth. They have parents who love them. Parents. Carlos's laugh was bitter. A man who moves his wife's former nurse into his home before she's been dead a year? A woman who faked her own death and abandoned her children? And this Elena person who clearly manipulated a grieving family for her own purposes. Elena saved our family. Daniel's voice rose. She destroyed it, Maria interrupted. Look at those children, Daniel. They're confused, conflicted. They don't know if they're supposed to love their real mother or their substitute mother more. From upstairs came the sound of muffled sobbing. James, still hiding in the closet. Daniel started to rise. I need to check on my son, our grandson, Carlos corrected, who we're removing from this morally toxic environment today. Like hell you are. We have an emergency custody order. Maria held up legal documents. Signed this morning by Judge Harrison. The children come with us pending a full psychological evaluation and family court hearing. Daniel's world tilted sideways. You can't just take them. We can and we will. Carlos stood, his voice final. Unless you agree to our terms immediately. Send Elena away permanently. Send Isabella to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. Sign over temporary custody to us while you get your life together. And if I refuse? Maria's smile was cruel. Then you'll never see them again. We have evidence of your inappropriate relationship, testimony about Isabella's mental instability, and expert witnesses who will testify that this living arrangement is psychologically damaging to children. The front door opened, and Isabella walked in with Elena beside her. Both women stopped dead at the sight of the standoff in the living room. Mama, Isabella whispered. Papa. Maria Rodriguez looked at her daughter like she was seeing a ghost, and not a welcome one. Isabella. My God, what have you done to yourself? To your family. I saved them, Isabella said, lifting her chin with a defiance Daniel remembered and loved. I saved us all. You destroyed everything, Carlos said, his voice heavy with disappointment. And you brought this woman into our family's tragedy. Elena stepped forward, her voice quiet but steady. Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez, I understand why you're upset, but you understand nothing, Maria hissed. You're a vulture who preyed on a grieving family. You have no place here. From upstairs, Lily's voice called down, small and broken, Elena? Is that Elena? Before anyone could stop her, both twins came thundering down the stairs. They launched themselves at Elena, clinging to her like lifelines. Don't let them take us away, Lily sobbed. Please don't let them take us away from you and Daddy and Mommy. James buried his face in Elena's shoulder. They said you're a bad person. They said you don't really love us. Elena's heart broke completely. She knelt down, gathering both children close. I love you more than anything in this world, she whispered. Both of you. Always. Then prove it, Carlos said coldly. Prove you love them by walking away. Let them have a normal family. Elena looked up at Daniel, at Isabella, at the grandparents who saw her as a threat rather than a blessing. Then she looked down at the children who'd become her world. You're right, she said, her voice breaking. They deserve better than this chaos. She kissed both twins on the forehead, stood up, and walked toward the door. Elena, no. Isabella called after her. Daniel found his voice. Elena, don't you dare, but she was already gone, the door closing behind her with the finality of a coffin lid in the silence that followed. The twins' heartbroken sobs filled the house like a funeral dirge. And Daniel realized that in trying to protect everyone he loved, he just lost the one person who'd made their broken family whole. Daniel Martinez had built a $2 billion empire by making impossible decisions under crushing pressure. But standing in his empty house at 2 a.m., watching security footage of Elena sitting in her car outside his gate for the third night in a row, never getting out, just watching, protecting them even in exile, he realized he'd never faced a choice that could destroy or save everything he loved. The twins hadn't spoken in 3 days. Not to him, not to Isabella, not to their grandparents who'd moved into the guest room like occupying forces. They moved through the house like beautiful ghosts, their silence more devastating than any tantrum. Isabella found him in his study, staring at the security monitors. She looked like she'd aged a decade in 72 hours, her skin pale, her eyes hollow with a kind of grief that comes from losing someone twice. She's out there again, Isabella said, settling beside him on the leather couch. Every night. Just sitting there. Making sure we're safe. Daniel's voice was raw from 3 days of barely contained fury. Do you know what I realized today? Isabella waited. I've never seen Elena cry for herself. Not once in 3 years. She cried for you when you were dying. She cried for me when I was broken. She cried for the children when they were hurt. But never for herself. Never for the daughter she lost or the life she gave up or the heart she broke trying to save ours. Isabella's hand found his. What are you going to do? Daniel turned to look at his wife, his brilliant, impossible, courageous wife who'd faked her death to save their family and was now watching him fall in love with someone else without a trace of jealousy. I'm going to burn it all down, he said quietly. The company, the reputation, the careful life I built. I'm going to destroy Richard Coleman, tell Isabella's parents exactly what I think of their moral superiority, and fight for the woman who's been fighting for us since the day we met her. Isabella's smile was radiant. Good. Because I already started. She pulled out her laptop, showing him a video file. I've been busy while you've been brooding. Daniel watched the screen as Isabella's face appeared, sitting in their kitchen, looking directly into the camera with the intensity of a woman declaring war. My name is Isabella Martinez. 3 years ago, the world thought I died. Today, I want to tell you why I chose to live. Isabella, what did you do? I told the truth. All of it. Richard's threats, the embezzlement, the fake death, Elena's sacrifice. Everything. Isabella's eyes blazed. And I posted it everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. It's been viewed 2 million times in the last 6 hours. Daniel stared at her in amazement. You went nuclear. I went Mama Bear. Isabella's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. Nobody threatens my family. Not Richard, not my parents, not society's narrow definition of what love should look like. Daniel's phone exploded with notifications. Text messages, missed calls, news alerts. The story was everywhere. Tech millionaire's wife reveals shocking truth behind fake death, the FBI called. An hour ago, Isabella continued. They want to meet tomorrow morning. Apparently, my video provided the final piece they needed to arrest Richard. And your parents? Isabella's smile turned wicked. Check the security cameras. Driveway. Now. Daniel switched screens and saw Carlos and Maria Rodriguez loading suitcases into their Mercedes, their faces thunderous with rage and humiliation. What happened? I told them that if they ever tried to take my children again, I'd release the recording I made of them 3 years ago. What recording? Isabella's expression grew serious. The night before my death, they came to the hospital. They told me they hoped the cancer would kill me quickly because they'd never approved of their daughter marrying a gringo entrepreneur, and they couldn't wait to raise properly Catholic grandchildren without my liberal influence. Daniel's jaw dropped. They said that to you while you were dying. They said worse. Much worse. All recorded on my phone. Isabella shrugged. Amazing how quickly moral superiority crumbles when faced with public humiliation. A sound from upstairs made them both freeze. Footsteps. Small ones, moving fast. Lily appeared at the top of the staircase in her princess pajamas, her face streaked with tears. Daddy, Elena is crying in her car. James and I can see her from our bedroom window, and she's crying so hard her whole body is shaking. Daniel was on his feet before his daughter finished speaking. Stay with Mommy. Where are you going? Isabella called after him. To get our family back. Elena sat in her 10-year-old Honda, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to earth. Through the ornate iron gates, she could see Daniel's house blazing with warm light, a beacon of everything she'd lost and everything she could never have again. Her phone buzzed with another text from a hospital administration. Ethics hearing scheduled for Monday. Recommend legal representation. She'd lost everything. Her job, her reputation, her family. The local news had painted her as a homewrecker, the internet trolls had found her address, and somewhere in Seattle, 2 children she loved more than life itself were learning to live without her again. Tap on her passenger window made her jump. Daniel stood in the rain, still in his expensive suit but looking like a man who'd walked through hell. His hair was disheveled, his tie askew, and his storm-gray eyes held something that made her heart stutter. Roll down the window, Elena. Daniel, don't. Please don't make this harder. Roll down the damn window. She complied, and he leaned down, his face inches from hers. He was close enough that she could smell his cologne, could see the exhaustion and determination etched in every line of his face. Do you know what I've learned in the last 3 days? He asked, his voice soft but intense. Elena shook her head, not trusting her voice. I learned that a house isn't a home without the right people in it. I learned that love isn't about choosing between people, it's about choosing to fight for them. And I learned that I'd rather lose everything I've built than lose the woman who taught my children how to love fearlessly. Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. Daniel, the custody case, your reputation, your company, gone. All of it gone. His smile was fierce and beautiful. Richard was arrested 2 hours ago. The custody petition was withdrawn. And as for my reputation... He gestured to her phone, which was buzzing with notifications. Check social media. With trembling fingers, Elena opened Instagram. The top video had 17 million views and counting. It was Isabella, sitting in their kitchen, looking directly into the camera with absolute conviction. This is Elena Vasquez. She's a pediatric nurse who saved my life, protected my family, and loves my children like they're her own. She's also the woman my husband is falling in love with, and I couldn't be happier about it. Elena gasped, scrolling through thousands of comments. This is the most beautiful love story I've ever heard. Elena deserves the world. Goals. Finding love that multiplies instead of divides. Crying actual tears over this family. The whole world is rooting for us, Daniel said softly. For all of us. Isabella's video has been shared by celebrities, news outlets, relationship experts. We're not a scandal anymore, Elena. We're a love story. Elena looked up at him through her tears. What are you saying? Daniel opened her car door and knelt in the wet gravel, taking her hands in his. I'm saying that I love you. Not because Isabella gave me permission, not because you've been taking care of us, but because you're extraordinary. You're brave and selfless, and you see beauty in broken things. You make me want to be the man you see when you look at me. Daniel, I'm saying that Isabella loves you too. Not as a replacement or a consolation prize, but as the missing piece of our family puzzle. The piece we didn't know we needed until you showed us what we were missing. Elena's resolve crumbled. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be part of something so big and beautiful and complicated. Daniel's smile could have powered the city. Neither do we. But we'll figure it out together. All of us. Because that's what families do. He stood, pulling her from the car and into his arms. Come home, Elena. Come home to your family. Through the rain and the darkness, Elena could see Isabella standing in the doorway with the twins, all three of them watching hopefully. Waiting for her, her family. Impossible, unconventional, perfect. Yes, she whispered against Daniel's chest. Yes, I want to come home. As they walked toward the house together, Elena realized that sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about finding your soulmate. Sometimes they're about finding your soul family. And sometimes, if you're incredibly lucky, you get both. 1 year later, the autumn sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of Rosewood Chapel, casting rainbow patterns across the polished wooden pews. It was the kind of small, intimate venue that whispered promises instead of shouting them, perfect for a wedding that was redefining everything the world thought it knew about love. Daniel stood at the altar in his charcoal gray suit, his hands remarkably steady for a man about to make history. Beside him, Isabella radiated joy in a flowing cream dress that complemented rather than competed, because this wasn't about being the traditional bride. This was about being part of something entirely new. The chapel doors opened, and Elena appeared like a vision from a dream. She wore a simple but stunning dusty rose dress that brought out the warmth of her brown eyes, her dark hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. In her hands, she carried a bouquet of daisies, Sophia's favorite flowers. Mixed with roses and baby's breath, she walked down the aisle, the assembled guests, a carefully chosen mix of close friends, supportive family members, and a few brave souls from Daniel's business world, rose to their feet. But Elena only had eyes for the family waiting for her at the altar. Daniel's breath caught as she drew closer. After a year of learning to love openly, of navigating the beautiful complexity of their relationship, of facing down critics and celebrating supporters, she still took his breath away. Isabella moved to Elena's side as she reached the altar, taking her hand and squeezing gently. "You're shaking," she whispered with a smile. "Good shaking or bad shaking?" Elena whispered back. "The very best kind," Isabella assured her. Pastor Williams, a progressive minister who'd spent considerable time counseling all three adults, stepped forward with a warm smile. He was an older man with kind eyes who'd seen enough of life to know that love came in many forms, all of them sacred. "Dearly beloved," he began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who believed deeply in what he was doing, "we are gathered here today to witness something extraordinary. Not just a wedding, but the celebration of a family that chose love over convention, courage over comfort, and unity over division." In the front row, 7-year-old Lily and James sat with Elena's sister Carmen, who'd flown in from Phoenix specifically for this day. Carmen had been skeptical at first. What sane woman shares a husband? But 5 minutes with this family had converted her completely. "Who gives this woman to be joined with this family?" Pastor Williams asked. Carmen stood, tears already streaming down her face. "Her daughter Sophia, who watches from heaven, and all of us who love her here on earth." Elena's eyes filled, but her smile could have lit up the entire city. Daniel stepped forward, taking Elena's free hand while Isabella maintained her grip on the other. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Elena wasn't being given to one person, but welcomed into a circle of love. "Elena," Daniel began, his voice strong and clear, "a year ago, I thought I knew what love looked like. I thought it was finite, exclusive, something that could be lost and never replaced. You taught me that love is infinite, that a heart can expand to hold more joy than I ever imagined possible." He paused, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "You didn't just save my family, you completed it in ways I didn't know we needed. You showed Lily and James that mothers come in many forms, all of them precious. You showed Isabella that her greatest gift to us wasn't just coming back to life, but bringing you into our lives. And you showed me that sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones that don't fit into traditional boxes." Elena's tears flowed freely now, but her voice was steady when she replied. "Daniel, Isabella, Lily, James, you gave me a reason to believe in love again after I thought that part of me had died with Sophia. You taught me that family isn't just about blood or law or convention. It's about choosing each other, every single day, even when the world doesn't understand." She turned to Isabella, their hands still joined. "Isabella, you trusted me with your greatest treasures, your children, your husband, your family's future. You showed me that the strongest women aren't the ones who hold on too tightly, but the ones who love so deeply they're willing to share that love. You gave me the courage to believe I deserved happiness again." Isabella was openly sobbing now, but her smile was radiant. Then Elena knelt down, bringing herself to eye level with the twins who'd wiggled out of their seats to stand closer. "Lily and James, you too taught me that love doesn't have to make sense to adults to be real. From the very first day you decided I was part of your family, you never questioned it, never doubted it. You just loved me completely, the way children love, without conditions or complications. You made me a mother again, and that's a gift I'll treasure forever. Are we gonna be a real family now?" Lily asked, loud enough for the entire chapel to hear. "We've been a real family for a long time, sweetheart," Elena replied. "Today we're just making it official." James stepped forward with the solemnity of someone handling state secrets. From his pocket, he pulled out 3 rings, not traditional wedding bands, but matching infinity symbols studded with small diamonds. "We helped pick them out," he announced proudly. Because Daddy said infinity means forever and ever, even longer than forever. Pastor Williams smiled as Daniel, Isabella, and Elena each took a ring. These rings represent something unprecedented, he said. Not the joining of two people, but the celebration of three hearts that have chosen to beat as one. Daniel, place this ring on Elena's finger as a symbol of your commitment to love and cherish her as part of your family. Daniel slipped the ring onto Elena's finger, his touch gentle and reverent. With this ring, I promise to love you fiercely, protect you always, and never take for granted the miracle of having you in our lives. Isabella, Pastor Williams continued, place this ring on Elena's other hand as a symbol of sisterhood, friendship, and shared love. Isabella's hands shook as she slipped the second ring onto Elena's right hand. With this ring, I promise to be your sister, your friend, your co-parent, and your biggest champion. I promise to place this ring on your own heart as a symbol of your commitment to this beautiful, complicated, perfect family. Elena pressed the third ring to her chest, over her heart. With this ring, I promise to love all of you with everything I have. To be a mother to Lily and James, a partner to Daniel, a sister to Isabella. To choose this family every day, in good times and challenging ones, for as long as I live. The chapel erupted in applause, but Pastor Williams raised his hand for one final moment. By the power vested in me, and more importantly, by the power of love that has brought you together, I now pronounce you a family, united not by law or tradition, but by choice, courage, and infinite love. The kiss was unlike anything in wedding tradition. Daniel kissed Elena first, tender and full of promise. Then Isabella kissed Elena's cheek, sealing their sisterhood. Finally, all three adults embraced while the twins launched themselves into the group hug with the enthusiasm of children who'd always known this day would come as they walked back down the aisle together. Daniel in the middle, Elena and Isabella on either side, the twins skipping ahead, the chapel filled with the sound of celebration. Outside, as photographer captured their unconventional family portraits, Elena noticed a familiar figure standing by the cemetery gate. T was Dr. Richardson, her former supervisor from the hospital. Elena, he called out, approaching with a warm smile. I wanted to congratulate you personally, and to offer you something. He handed her an official-looking envelope. What's this? Elena asked, her heart racing. Chief of Pediatric Nursing. The board unanimously voted to offer you the position after your story went viral. Turns out, the whole world could see what we should have recognized all along. You're an extraordinary nurse and an even more extraordinary person. Elena stared at the job offer, then looked at her family. Daniel beamed with pride, Isabella clapped her hands in delight, and the twins cheered like their favorite superhero had just saved the world. The position comes with a substantial raise, Dr. Richardson added with a wink. Should help with wedding expenses for unusual families. As the sun set over Rosewood Cemetery, the Martinez-Vasquez family, because Elena had legally hyphenated her name to honor both her new family and her heritage, stood together for one last photo. In the background, barely visible but eternally present, stood a small figure with curly hair and a bright smile. Sophia, watching over the mother who'd found love again and the family who'd taught the world that sometimes the most beautiful endings are really new beginnings. Ready to go home? Daniel asked, his arms around both women. We are home, Elena replied, looking at the faces of the people she loved. Wherever we are together, we're home. And as they drove away into their extraordinary future, one thing was crystal clear. They'd proven that love doesn't divide, it multiplies, creating something more beautiful than anyone could have imagined. The world had called them impossible, they'd chosen to be inevitable instead. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button, because every family deserves a love story this beautiful. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button, because every family deserves a love story this beautiful.